In the last couple of years, we've all seen the likes of Google, Facebook, or Meta, and Amazon, Microsoft, and Twitter lay off thousands of employees. We've seen COVID's effects on organizations as they realized they'd overhired during the pandemic. But the thing that you might not know is that most companies are on a hiring freeze when it comes to women. This might be shocking to know, and no company will tell you this, but more and more companies are avoiding hiring women to join their ranks. I'm not saying the tech companies I mentioned are doing this. No, not at all. But there are quite a lot of companies that are secretly trying to hire men instead of women. You see, over the last decade, and with the increase in the implementation of the feminist agenda, more and more companies were made to hire women by law. Companies had gender quotas that they needed to fill. They had a number of mandatory female workers that they had to hire as board members or regional or global heads of various departments, such as marketing and procurement. But all of that came at a price. Imagine you're running a company and you know you'll be heavily fined if you don't hire at least 5 females as heads of departments for your large corporation operating in more than 100 countries. Now, imagine that for the roles you have to hire women, there aren't many women qualified enough or experienced enough to do the job well. What will you do then? Of course, you will still have to hire women. But when you don't have the quality candidate you're used to, you're going to offer the position to someone a lot junior. And that's what companies have had to do. They had to hire junior candidates for senior positions and then suffer the consequences as the inexperienced women made blunder after blunder and couldn't cope with the pressure, all the while demanding more pay than their male counterparts. But why are companies avoiding hiring women in the first place? Women and men can both achieve great things and add similar value to organizations. Yes, but women commonly adhere to their own nature and bring it into the culture at the workplace. You must have heard of someone being falsely accused of misogyny or some sort of harassment allegation who got fired from his job and could never recover financially because no other company would hire him. That's right. Men have started to avoid women in the workplace because they know one call to the human resources manager from a woman can potentially make them lose their source of income and reputation. Men are afraid they're going to get fired. Another study that was conducted to evaluate the effects and consequences of the Me Too movement found that men are becoming noticeably less willing to approach their female peers in the workplace. According to the report, 20% of men avoid speaking to and interacting with female coworkers privately. A third or more of men stated they would be terrified to be alone with a woman in the study's primary research, which questioned men how they would feel if they were in the office alone with a woman. Why? Well, the main reason is that they just don't want to be in a situation where they're framed for any sort of allegations against them by the women. They don't want to lose their jobs over some women. And it's pretty easy for women to have a man fired from his job these days. It's just one email, call, or conversation away from human resources and senior management. Here's another truth. Men will always be guilty in the eyes of corporate authority. Nowadays, until you can prove your innocence, you are guilty. Men are most afraid of this. God forbid if a woman even alleges untruly that a guy harassed her at work, that man will lose his job, any chance of getting another employment in the future, along with his reputation and self-esteem. That is the enormous advantage that women have over men at work. Therefore, it should come as no surprise that 21% of men said they would be reluctant to hire a woman for a job that needs an intimate connection, like traveling for business. 19% of the males responded that they would be reluctant to hire a woman who was deemed attractive by social norms. This was the result of a survey taken from employees working in various businesses. The survey also noted that similar surveys taken in the past did not garner similar results. In the previous surveys, men were more comfortable interacting with women in office settings. Previously, 15% of men compared to 21% in the later surveys indicated they would be less likely to recruit women for positions that demand close interpersonal interactions. The reality is that men would rather work more freely with other men. This only serves to demonstrate how increasingly wary males have become of women throughout time, especially in the last 10 years, and how much they would prefer to communicate and work with other guys. In cubicles, meetings, and boardrooms, they prefer to work with other males rather than women because they can share information, talk about ideas, and organize their schedules together. This is due to their fear of losing the career they have worked so hard to build over a long period of time. They may lose everything with just one unfounded accusation. In a society that primarily takes into account and believes what women say, one false charge could end up being the villain. So, don't blame men, I mean. Men can see what has happened over the years, especially with the advent of the Me Too movement. They don't want to bear responsibility for something they did not commit. They don't want to lose their jobs, status, and position in society. Just to be clear, men not saying that they are the only ones that are terrified of women here. Women also seem to be hiring fewer women in general. According to the results of the preceding poll, more than 10% of men and women were projected to be less likely than before to hire attractive women. I feel this is the case because, in general, people tend to believe attractive people more than those who lack beauty. We can credit popular culture for that. The truth is that the typical attractive modern woman of today is out of reach anyway. In every movie you see, regardless of how recent or how old it is, the lead character is either the most attractive woman or the most attractive man who is incapable of wrongdoing and who works to uphold justice in society. The evil men and villains are always aged, gorgeous, scared people who look awful. It should therefore come as no surprise that neither men nor women would want to consider hiring attractive women, because if a woman made a false complaint against a man, everyone would assume that she was telling the truth. Everyone can see a guy trying to flirt with a beautiful woman. That is how it has always been. Guys find it extremely challenging to deal with the harassment issue. Some people may be accused of harassment for merely making jokes with a coworker. Even in this instance, too, male coworkers could legitimately be making jokes among themselves without targeting anyone, and they could be condemned for it as harassment. Then, all of a sudden, HR is after them and interrogating them about everything. Men are wary of shaking hands with women out of concern that she could view it as harassment. Avoiding touch altogether would be easier. It makes sense that men would want to avoid being alone with women to avoid any potential problems that could endanger their careers. And because they feel left out, women have started to protest about this. They are no longer expected to work harder on projects and finish them in the wee hours of the morning at the office. Because they know their professions won't be in jeopardy, people would prefer to ask men to stay late and work with them. In reality, men just don't want gossip and overreactions from women. Women are also left out of the team's private and confidential meetings when important information is exchanged. For instance, if I had to share anything with a coworker in a cramped conference room alone and I had to go with someone, I'd prefer to pick a man since I understand that inviting a woman into a confined space might seem odd to others. The adverse effects of Me Too are still being felt in the corporate sector, not just in America, but also in Europe, England, and other parts of the world. Men will continue to avoid working with women as long as they continue to overreact to the movement and level false charges against them that we constantly see in the media. There's no place for gossip and drama at the office, and unfortunately, that's what most women bring to it. And companies will secretly continue to avoid hiring women because they know the more women they have in the company, the more drama it will lead to, and the more its work and profits will suffer as a result. Thanks for watching Man Reacts. Show us your love and support by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to the channel. And let us know your thoughts on this in the comments. We're always up for a healthy debate and discussion.